Alright, welcome back, Finesse Box listeners. And thank you for tuning in. I had something on my mind I just wanted to talk about. Mischievous kids. I recently moved into an apartment complex, and I was swindled. I was misled. When I got there, they only took me around the tour of the front, so it's a nice grass area, and they scheduled it in a certain time of day that corresponded with like the quietest time. No kids were going to be around, so they knew it was up. They knew that the kids had a certain schedule. They knew that it was going to be quiet this time, so they took us around. Super quiet time, no little kids yelling. Only took us around the tour of the front grassed area. Then comes to move-in day. We just assume everything's all good. We go, oh, we're way up in the back. Okay. So we go through. We didn't even realize how many jigsaw buildings there are. The layout makes no sense. I still, to this day, I still don't have it figured out. I mean, I haven't lived here that long, but still, don't have it figured out. We find their place. Okay, it's not terrible, but there's no grass. There's rocks. We have rocks around here. Are you gonna do that? You're gonna do that? You're gonna bring us around the front with the grass, and then you do the switcheroo out for the rocks in the back. They just splurged on the grass in the front, and I'm not sure if they got it from some sort of marketing technique, or if they came up with it on their own. It was just in the profit plan to only grass the front half. I digress. So, there weren't any little kids around. Now, I see living here, there are constantly little kids around. And you forget how mischievous little kids are. Yeah, you forget, they'll run around, and if you ask them to be quiet, they're definitely not going to be quiet. You're definitely making a target for yourself. Definitely making a target for yourself in future situations where kids are going to get mischievous. They're going to look to get you. So, but it had me thinking about my own childhood and mischievous things that I had done. And I went through a little phase of something I would call, something I can't call originally, but I got from Theo Vaughn, and he has a great podcast, very inspirational for me creating this one, but he would call it the dark arts. And I was getting into those dark arts myself when I was younger. And I lived in this apartment complex when I was younger, and it had this back alleyway and then a wall you could kind of see through. It was like a stucco wall, it had like little cubbies cut out, so you could kind of see through it, but it was, still a wall. And then a Safeway parking lot. And I got this slingshot, a super legit slingshot, $25 slingshot. And I remember pointing over and having this smooth rock, just pointing over Safeway, the building, and firing it off, and just seeing it just go. And I thought it went forever. When I was in middle school, elementary school, I thought it went forever. So I pointed, occasionally would find myself pointing it at the Safeway parking lot with the other children, and thinking back, that'd be ridiculous now. But back then, you just didn't have any perspective. You just didn't know how fucked up what you were doing was. Now they have these solar panels covering up the parking lot, which would prevent me from doing it now. But yeah, we would take water balloons and try to throw them over, which is way more innocent than the slingshotting rocks. Thinking back, Jesus. But I take water balloons, throw them over. We also shared a wall, and with a BK drive-through right on the other side. So we would take water balloons, fill them up, and throw them right over. And sometimes cars would come in looking for some payback, but we would flee. We would flee most of the time. Sometimes we would have some altercations, but what are they gonna do? And it has me actually thinking about another time. I used to hang out with this one kid. I don't want to say any first names in case any of my friends listen to this podcast or anything. I'm just going to call him initial Z. My friend Z. Him and I used to spend a lot of time at each other's houses. I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied. I bit my tongue pretty hard recently, and I also just took a bong rip. So having trouble getting those words slapping out of my lips. But we'll get it on track. Z grew up together, both living in lower economic areas, apartment complexes. But he had 2 older brothers. And his older brothers were into the dark arts as well. They were in high school, on the cusp of being men. We were just boys. We were in middle school, just starting middle school. And these young men would hang out in a lot of urban environments. And they would get into these things like robbing people's cars at night, graffiti, doing a lot of drugs. And so that's just the environment was. But I remember one time I got mischievous myself and started feeling frisky. And the older brothers were talking about going out that night and robbing cars, and I was looking at my friend Z, and I was like, hey, let's go do this. Completely naive to any repercussions, really, like oblivious. So stupid. But I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that. Z, probably being a little more experienced living with his brothers, knowing what the hell was actually up, refused. I thought he was just pussing out, so I went out with his older brother, and we were going to rob cars. So we hopped over the fence to this other complex lot full of cars, and we started digging through. I'm the lookout. My job originally was to find open car doors, and then he would come down and look through them while I was the lookout. So I'm opening this car door, found one, boom, he's right in, we're looking around, my adrenaline is going through the roof, and then all of a sudden I hear this guy yelling, and he's, hey, you motherfucker, and I can't, at first I don't even, really realize what he's saying. I just know that there's someone yelling. I'm not even, hearing him. I'm just there's someone knows what we're doing, we have to run. He's already over the wall. The older brother's already over the wall. Grown-ass man, almost. Climbs it, no problem. Me, skinny little dude, I'm having trouble. My first attempt is pitiful. I'm looking around, and then I hear another yell, hey, I called the cops, motherfucker. And it's getting closer, and now all of a sudden my life is like a movie. And thankfully, the older brother of Z reaches his hand over, boom, grabs me, boom, we're over in a second. We're running through this park, trying to find trees for cover. I don't know if he's drugged out also, looking back, but he's like, oh, there's undercover cops. I don't see any undercover cops. I'm like, I don't know, we end up just making it back to the place. No undercover cops stopped us, thankfully, but it has me reflecting on those times, seeing these young kids playing and being mischievous in this new place that I live. Yeah, me and Z would just find ourselves in those dark arts. We would sometimes panhandle. We would say that we needed money for the bus, and then we would just take that money that we got, singles from strangers, and just go to the QT and get taquitos or something of that sorts. And ding dong ditch all the time, and really it started even before middle school. I would say even in elementary school, I started to get that the inner demon, the inner want of doing something bad just because you could. I think it's because I was raised real strict Christian when I was real little, so I went to a private Christian academy. I think that has a big part of why I wanted to do something naughty, you know what I mean? In elementary school, I remember I'd go to this bathroom that was on the corner of campus, and we shared this campus with another, I don't know if it was an elderly home or they only rented, it seemed like only old people lived in this place, but there was a wedge in the wall. I'm running out of video time on this, actually. I can get through this. So there's a little wedge in the wall. I could sneak out. especially because back then I was skinny small. So I'd say I'd go out to the bathroom every once in a while, and I would squeeze myself through this hole between these two walls that separate the school from this elderly apartment complex, and I would go through and I would just knock the shit out of a window, just the bang, 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 hard. I would try to scare, I would try to scare somebody. I would try to scare whoever was in there, and sprint back. And I remember any time I would see the liaison, I'm not sure if they say liaison officer at the school. Anytime I would see him come into a classroom or something, I had just assumed the jig was up, like I was in some sort of high stakes investigation, and now the jig was up. And I think that excited me, thinking that it could be on the edge and that the jig could be up potentially for me. So just wanted to share some of that with the listeners. Thank you for listening to Finesse Box Podcast.